So I'm going to be honest with you guys here. For whatever reason, I woke up today feeling like absolute shit. And so that's really what's on my plate as a human being today. That's really what I'm dealing with. And so I thought we would kind of use that as an opportunity to talk about what to do in those days where you're really just out of sorts, kind of not feeling great for whatever reason. I thought it might be interesting to share my thoughts on how I approach this and what I do in case something that I do might be of use to you. The kind of parallel thought here is that I often get questions from my clients that aren't directly obviously related to psychedelics, psychedelic therapy, or self-regulation or personal growth stuff or NLP or hypnosis stuff. I get all these little kind of questions more about how I as a person think or navigate or have learned to deal with certain small common life issues. So I thought I would kind of leverage this moment, since kind of what's in my attention is feeling like shit, and use this to share with you guys what I do, again, in case anything might be of value to you. So if that interests you, join me. And if you want to just kind of wait till the next video comes along that's perhaps a little more on target with the rest of this channel, I totally understand, and this may not be the video for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we go ahead and get into all the specifics of this, and there are a lot of different kind of detailed points I want to articulate to you in this video, I thought it might be useful just to kind of give you a little bit of context on A, what I mean by feel like shit in terms of myself today, and also B, what kind of my history and my kind of orientation towards taking care of myself is, right? Because I may have biases or a perspective on that may not resonate for you, and that's totally okay. We're all human beings. We all have different needs and preferences, and some of the things I say here may not really be a fit for your lifestyle or what have you. But I feel like in order to make any of this work, it's just kind of useful to be kind of transparent about that first, be clear about who I am in terms of problem solving and pursuing relief and healing myself, so that you have a better sense of how to kind of take all this information with a grain of salt, right? Excuse me, minor little burp there. So first place I want to start is what I mean by feel like shit. So today in specific, what I mean is mostly that physically I feel like shit. I don't know what's going on, if I'm fighting off a cold or if I ate something that kind of made my body have some inflammation or what have you. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I know that I woke up feeling kind of achy and out of sorts physically, and a bit rougher for the wear than normal by this time of day. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with personally, right? So this video, I really want to address both the physical end of feeling like shit, but also the more emotional end of the spectrum here. And again, it's just to give you some ideas on how I navigate those moments, because truth be told, and this is kind of the first key into me in understanding, my perspective on this. I have spent a lot of my life alone. I've spent a lot of my life isolated, either kind of trying to sort out my own issues or in living in situations that meant spending a lot of time alone. I'm an only child. I have a bunch of friends that I love and great friend groups, but sometimes we're not always, closely in touch. And so this has meant that I've had to be fairly self-reliant when it comes to self-care, and help support myself through these kind of, difficult moments. And, as if you've watched the channel for a while, that I've had my own process of healing my own personal trauma. And I've also had my own process of struggling with some health issues over the last 10 years, I'd say. And so self-supporting through these moments is something I've had to learn how to do. And it's something that, there are certainly days where things get acute for whatever reason. And, I've just had to kind of figure out how to move through that. So that's kind of what I want to share here with you. In terms of biases, right? So I'm definitely someone who doesn't lean on medication, on allopathic, that is kind of, your standard Western medical doctors, for a lot of different reasons, right? So my bias is towards taking care of it myself if I can. My bias is towards perhaps natural interventions first over going straight to pharmaceuticals or going straight to a doctor anytime I have any sort of wobble in my health or wobble in my well-being. My bias is towards looking at a systemic, holistic view of health, of, really integrative, of sure, considering allopathic potentials and, learning about my health from that angle, but also really getting into understanding things from, say, an energetic medicine lens, like Chinese medicine, for example, or Ayurveda, for example. In other words, I'm really open-minded and looking for more chronic, consistent self-support rather than kind of the standard Western model that we have here in the United States, which is much more, acute, symptom based, right? So here in the States, we don't really have a good medical system for kind of chronic support of health issues, or just kind of a well-being creating life, well-being support, right? These are all considered fringe in the States. And to me, that's a bit absurd, because I think you should start with a foundation of well-being, not just take your well-being for granted, but actively participate in that. And then if there are kind of acute instances of something kind of really needing attention, then you kind of, move to other more severe, interventions as needed. So that's kind of my bias in terms of self-care. So there's kind of a sense of independence about it. There's a sense of self-education about it. There's kind of holism to it. I'm not anti-allopathic medicine, but I try to consider it as part of a larger set of approaches. And mostly I'm interested in lifestyle interventions and getting the fundamentals right to kind of take care of myself. So if you don't align with that kind of worldview or belief system, fair enough. I don't expect you to. I don't expect you to respect my approach to this necessarily. It's just simply what I found works for me and kind of what I've learned from other people who are pretty deep into health and well-being and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the context through which we're going to be approaching what I'm going to talk about here. But again, we're also going to be talking about the mental health side of things. What do you do when you feel like shit emotionally, right? So maybe you might want to skip to that video if you don't agree with the physical side of things, etc. But hopefully something here is useful for you. I'm going to stop rambling on and let's get into the specifics here. Okay, so an interesting place to start with this entire conversation is perhaps to start with what not to do, right? And this is something I've learned the hard way. You may or may not disagree, but this is kind of my advice to you in terms of what not to do in those days where you're feeling extra crappy and you don't know why. I would encourage you to not obsess over why you're feeling bad, right? The temptation is to be alarmed that we're feeling bad and then to really try to problem solve it and kind of obsess over it and really try to figure it out. I would encourage you not to obsess about it. Sure, have a think about it in terms of maybe why you're feeling off, but don't obsess over it and let that make you reactive and then make that cause you to start kind of overdoing things to try to overcompensate to fix yourself. The reason I say this is that in general, I found that two things happen if we go down that road. Maybe more than two. A couple things happen. So one, we tend to get more anxious and more stressed, and obsession breeds more obsession, and it turns into a rumination and thought loop. And then we're just kind of hyper fixated on addressing something that maybe we're not going to problem solve in the short term our way out of, right? It might just be a thing that you need to kind of weather for a few hours or a day or a few days, right? Sometimes that's the case. Another reason why you don't want to do that, a lot of times when you're obsessing, you're using what you already know, which is closing you off to perhaps discover other explanations or reasons why you're feeling the way you're feeling, right? So if you're going to start reaching for what you already think you already know, then that starts to limit down your ability to actually understand what's going on with yourself. Third reason I don't recommend this is usually when we're in that state, we tend to overcompensate with action, right? And that can actually exacerbate things, make things worse, or just, not make them better, right? So whether we're talking about, let's say you're feeling emotionally shitty and then you're trying to psychoanalyze yourself, and then you're down some deep rabbit hole of trying to strategize and figure out why you have this issue. And the next thing you know, you're really fixated on your issues. That may or may not help, right? In terms of the health side of things, that might be, you rush to take a bunch of medicines and supplements. And next thing you know, maybe you took the wrong supplement for what you're feeling or the wrong medicine for what you're feeling. And now you feel tired or wonky or dizzy or dissociated, or I've put myself in all kinds of weird spots along the way. And so it really is one of these things where less is more in my experience. So that's kind of what not to do. Let's talk about generally broadly what to do. Then we'll start to get into more specifics of what I tend to do. Okay, what to do. So in my view, in my experience, what really generally works, and this might be obvious to some of you, is to generally slow down, to soften things, and to spend time nurturing yourself to the best of your ability, right? So like I was just saying in the last section of what not to do, it's easy to overdo, let's say, a bunch of supplements and then kind of overcook yourself here and then feel even worse, right? What I find is really the slowing down, the softening, the relaxing, the expecting less out of yourself for a day or two, and the spending more time nurturing yourself generally creates positive responses and positive results, whether we're talking health or whether we're talking like mental health, emotional health, right? So this is true both for the mental and the physical side of this. So in general, soften. And again, I know this is obvious, we all know what it's like probably to need to stay home from school and take care of ourselves and chill out. So that's not exactly news to any of us, but it's interesting to me how often adults feel like the solution to feeling bad is to force things, to push harder, to force themselves, right? Like because you have more agency as an adult, there's this perhaps illusion or tendency that means you have to really do something in every case. But in certain situations, doing things actually makes it worse, and not doing something or slowing down and just being gentle has a lot more power to it. So I found that's what works for me most of the time. So as a general principle here, that's kind of underlying all the things I'm going to say here, but just food for thought. The other big principle here in terms of what to do is that I would recommend that you sort out if it's physical or if it's emotional in root or in base. And sometimes it's a combination because, again, the body and the mind are interconnected, and it's really more like the body mind, and things that impact our mind can affect our physical health and the other way around too. But try to sort out most immediately, most acutely, is this a physical health issue I'm feeling, or is this a mental, emotional health thing that I'm feeling? And again, trying to suss that out without getting obsessive and stressed and like overly investigative and kind of, really intense about it. Just kind of see if you can get a general feel for where you think this is coming from for you. I think that's really useful as a starting point, because obviously you don't want to be using physical health interventions for a mental health issue. And also conversely, you don't want to be necessarily using mental health interventions, i.e. don't do therapy on a cold, right? Like that's silly too, right? So sort out what's what first and then kind of proceed from there. So assuming it's a physical thing, this is what I do first, right? So first thing I would do is identify again, is this a physical thing? Is this an emotional thing? Or is this some like intersection in the middle where maybe I ran myself a bit ragged and that's kind of run down my health, and also my mental health is a bit maxed out, and it's kind of all, a cluster, but usually it's more clearly one or the other, and for me at least. So assuming I've sorted out that, okay, this is physical and root cause, right? Then what am I going to do from there, right? So generally, I'm going to try to slow down, right? Again, I'm going to try to take the pressure off of myself in terms of expectations for the day, for the next couple days. I'm going to try to do less, and I'm going to try to nurture myself more, right? The first place I'm going to look in terms of understanding perhaps what might be off, and I think this is, again, cliche, obvious, but it's cliche and obvious for a reason because these really count, would be the big three of well-being, which would be sleep, diet, and exercise, right? So I'd be looking at, how's my sleep been? I'd be looking at, how has my diet been? Have I kind of gotten a little liberal with what I'm eating, or did I eat something that didn't agree with me? Or I'd be really mindful about those. And then I'd be really mindful of, am I moving enough? Am I exercising, right? Am I sweating? Am I, taking care of my body through exercise? So I'd start there, right? Generally, if I'm feeling physically off, then what I would do is I would probably pivot to focusing on rest as much as possible for the day. So that's going to mean, maybe taking a nap midday. That's going to mean maybe just slowing down and just keeping it really mellow and chill for the day. That's going to mean probably going to bed early that night. That's going to mean perhaps, taking a nice hot bath or nice hot shower, these kinds of things. Just generally having a more restful day. So that's where I'd start if it's physical. So in addition to resting and just generally slowing down, I'm also probably going to shift my diet, right? So this is the diet part of that whole equation. And in particular, I'm probably going to cut out any sugar if I've been eating any sugar. I'm going to cut out, most carbs except for maybe like, veggies. Go no sugar, low carb, probably no dairy, honestly, too. In other words, cut out any really inflammatory foods that I know are going to kind of, upset me, and, and just really eat very clean for the next little while. This means a bunch of water, of course, simple foods that are really nourishing, warm foods if it's cold out, so that I'm not kind of, stressing my body to try to warm up the food, any of that kind of stuff. And just generally eat really simple, clean, not eat too much, not undereat and starve myself. Although sometimes fasting can help, but sometimes fasting can also, go on too long. And then part of the reason we're feeling like hot ick is because we haven't, maybe we're hungry and we don't realize it, and we're having low blood sugar and we don't realize it. And, so I try to eat enough to keep my blood sugar stable, but not so much that I'm overeating or overindulging and stressing my body out. Keep it very clean, lots of water, that kind of a thing. And I do want to make a note about diet here. In case you don't know this, there's a lot of clear science to show that when we're underslept and when we're stressed, in other words, when we have high cortisol in our system, we tend to have worse judgment when it comes to food. So if you're feeling like shit, there's more of a chance that you're going to be compelled to just kind of eat junk food or make bad choices in terms of calories and dietary input. So this is another thing. If I'm feeling off, I slow down, I take care of myself, and I become really mindful of any urges I have to suddenly eat ice cream and cookies, or have pizza instead of, some soup and, and some protein or something like that. So this is another thing to really be aware of is, any urges you have to like suddenly be decadent rather than to really eat clean. So eating clean, another major one here. Okay, so the next thing I might do if I'm feeling like shit physically is I might look to take supplements. So like I said in the kind of setup to this conversation, you don't want to overdo the supplements. It's really easy to just start grabbing for every supplement you can, or, cold medicines, these kinds of things, and overdo it. Either combine the wrong things, take too high of a dose of something that could help, take the wrong thing for what you're dealing with, and end up all kinds of different ways. I've been exhausted, and then I took the wrong supplement, and then I'm like wired and can't chill out. That sucks, right? I've, wanted to be productive, but just wanted to kind of nourish myself and then taken the wrong thing and been sleepy all day, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to be careful with the supplements. Generally, what I'm going to do, if I'm feeling off physically, I'm going to make sure that obviously my basics in terms of vitamins and minerals are covered, taken care of. I might boost my C if I feel like it's a cold situation. In general, I prefer liposomal C. It seems to, I can take a good solid dose of that. I might go to, depending on what it is and how I'm feeling off, I might go to adaptogens. So I'm going to list different kind of categories of supplements here. I encourage you to Google them, look them up. I'm not going to unpack what all of these are because A, I'm not an expert in that stuff, and B, trying to keep the video as short as possible for you guys here. But I would go to adaptogens, right? So these are things that often can balance us out and strengthen us and support us and help us adapt to stress. I'd go to anti-inflammatories. I have a lot of kind of inflammation stuff that my body's still healing here. So often that's going to be a big move for me. And by anti-inflammatories, I don't mean necessarily ibuprofen or aspirin, something like that. What I mean more specifically is herbs that are anti-inflammatory, whether that's turmeric or something else, right? I might go to cognitive support. So if I'm feeling really off physically and my brain is foggy and I'm not doing great for whatever reason, I might reach for cognitive support, whether that's ginkgo biloba or like the alpha brain supplements from Onnit, something like that. Or sometimes, this is rare, this is more usually if I'm emotionally off, but sometimes when I'm physically off, if I'm kind of like, my body feels like it's giving me a lot of like kind of fight or flight signals, or kind of like sometimes when we're physically off, it can kind of be wired and edgy and feel really sharp. I might take an anxiolytic, so some sort of calming, soothing. But again, you want to be careful with these because you do too much and then you're sleepy and drowsy typically with not all anxiolytics, but some. So this is going to be something that's probably going to stimulate the GABA system, or something like theanine or something like ashwagandha, which is going to help kind of calm the nervous system a little bit and help you relax, So again, that kind of fits this overall ethos of slow down, chill out, nourish, right? So usually that's going to fit with these kinds of days, but got to choose wisely. Okay, so that's it for supplements. Let's talk about a couple other things that I do when I'm feeling off that might sound a little weird to you, but hear me out. Okay, so another one that I often go to if I'm feeling out of sorts is I will do acupressure on myself. So I've recommended this to clients. I've actually seen people who never have done acupressure on themselves kind of do some of the points that I've either taught them or kind of sent them to links to like explore for themselves, and gotten some rave reviews back. So I wouldn't discount this, but I lived in a place where there was an acupuncture school for a long time, and a lot of my friends, who are kind of in the healing arts were into acupuncture. And so I kind of got introduced to a lot of these ideas of Chinese medicine and, Chinese herbs for medicine, and acupressure and acupuncture and qigong and things like this, which are all part of that world in terms of remedies for health stuff. And, honestly, they've gotten me through so many rough spots over the years. So one thing I'll do a lot, depending on what's going on for me physically, is I will look up the points for those symptoms, right? And you kind of you got to be good with the Google a little bit and find the right images and the right, blog posts. And it's not always super easy to find this information because, again, most of that content isn't made for the layperson. It's made for someone who's studying Chinese medicine and already educated in the whole theory of it and understands the names of all the points and all the meridian channels, all that stuff, right? So you got to kind of, be willing to be patient and sift through the information a little bit. But it's uncanny how many times I've looked for a particular, issue. For example, let's say a headache, right? And I'll look up, acupressure points for headache, right? And then I will find what those points are. Usually, sometimes you'll see an article with like 1 or 2 or 3 points. For me, generally, it's lower likelihood of feeling better from just 1 or 2 points, although sometimes you find exactly the point you need and it's all good. So generally, depending on the issue, I will find an article that lists 7 to 10 or 12 different points, and I'll try them out. And usually 1 or 2 of them will really make a big, big difference. So this is another thing I do a lot. I'll just look it up and I'll spend however long I need, 20 minutes, half an hour usually is about all it takes, doing some acupressure on myself. Generally with acupressure, accuracy matters to some degree. And generally, just as a small note on technique here, if you're inclined to explore this for yourself, I'd recommend, a lot of times they say, use your fingertip and kind of wiggle it and kind of like put some pressure on the point and kind of like dig in a little bit and push, right? A lot of times what I also do is I'll try to find the exact point. I'll use the corner of my fingernail and try to simulate like acupuncture without actually puncturing my skin, but I'll try to just create a more of a sharp point in that exact spot. Yes, it's a little uncomfortable. Yes, it's kind of tedious and annoying. But the end result is usually that I get a stronger kind of, remedy from that. So that's one thing you could try is, play with acupressure yourself. Look up acupressure points. Worst case scenario, I don't think you're really going to mess yourself up doing this, but I've certainly found relief in some pretty acute moments of my life this way, if I'm going to be honest here. If that's not working and none of these other interventions are working, a couple other things I'm going to do here might be to go to an acupuncturist, right? So I might, instead of just trying to DIY my own acupressure, I might find a local acupuncture clinic in my city, if my city has one. The city I was just living in New Mexico, did not. So I really had to DIY it if I want to go that route. But if you live in a more major urban center, certainly anywhere in the States, probably over a good portion of the world, honestly, you can probably find an acupuncturist locally. And often what you can find is, especially here in the States, are these models of community acupuncture where they're much cheaper. And you go and you sit in a room, and there's other people in there in the room. And usually it's kind of quiet music and recliners, and it's all laid back and it's cheaper. It's usually like $20-$30 a treatment. And you go in and you kind of lay down or sit in the chair or whatever, and acupuncturists will come by. They'll be like, what's going on? Then they'll, put some needles, and it'll just be arms, maybe head, face, neck, and maybe from the knee down, like legs and feet, right? So they're not going to do any upper thigh or any of your body or any of your back, but just through those points, they can usually address whatever they need to. And so that's been a huge saver of me multiple times over the years. The great thing about that is you go to an acupuncturist and they want to give you an herbal formula. You can buy an herbal formula from them, and that might be a more natural solution to a physical health ailment. So obviously there's limitations to this approach. There are times I certainly wouldn't use it. And so obviously the last solution here in terms of physical health, if I'm feeling really off physically and either it's scaring me or it feels really serious or really persistent, then I'm probably going to go either to a doctor or to like a hospital, depending on the situation. So please, don't misconstrue this information as saying, to avoid, medical doctors whenever needed. But it's just saying for me, that's kind of a last option, when all the other things haven't worked. So that's it for the physical. Let's talk about the emotional side of things. So side note here, it's also comical to me how much this shirt blends in with the background and the colors. In the room, versus on the camera, things look a little different, but on camera here, it's pretty funny. Anyways, not trying to just be a big blur of brown, orange, but here we are. All right. Anyways, so if it's emotional, right? What do we do in this situation? So for me, if I know that I'm feeling like shit and I know that it's based in emotions, the overall principle is still the same, which is slow down, soften, and nurture myself, right? And so in particular, what this means is that usually I'm going to stop what I'm doing or try to minimize what I'm trying to get done in a day as best I can, right? I mean, if you have a 9 to 5, you have to go to work. I get it. You got to just kind of, deal with that. And of course, the getting to and from work and all that. But, for me, what I found helps is if I can take a day off, or I can slow down, or I can do a partial day, expect less out of myself. That's always helpful. And then I'm going to pivot more often than not, instead of trying to force myself to process, right? Or trying to really get to the root cause or really ruminate over, let's say it's an event or something that triggered me that's external to me, right? Something that's clear cut. Instead of like really ruminating on, the event, my focus is, instead of going to any of that stuff again, so I've trained myself over the years to slow down, pull back, take care of myself. And usually that's going to mean spending as much time as I need to self-regulate, right? So if I'm having a rough mental health day, usually what I'm going to do is try to minimize the things that are expected of me. And I'm going to go put in as much time as I need to help myself feel regulated and supported, right? So that might mean if I need to spend 3 hours, self-regulating, so be it, right? If I need to spend all day self-regulating, so be it. I'm going to show up for myself in these moments, because these are the moments, in a lot of ways, at least at a nervous system level, that really matter, right? And so that's kind of the first principle here. And in that, I'm going to focus on connecting with myself and helping myself to feel heard and seen and understood, over trying to change what's going on inside my mind and body and emotions, or trying to manipulate how I'm feeling, right? As a hypnotherapist, as someone trained in NLP, my bag of tricks of getting change out of myself or out of others at this point is pretty large. I know way too many techniques where I could just rush to change and tweak how I feel, right? But there's a deeper principle at play here, which is making sure that my system and my emotional system and whatever part of me is upset or feeling wounded or triggered or dysregulated, to feel understood and connected to and supported and seen first. So I'll slow down and I'll spend as much time as I need to helping that part of me feel really connected, right? And really, in a lot of ways, what I'll do is I will shift my focus from, again, what's the root cause here? Why am I feeling this way? What triggered me? What is this about? Psychoanalyzing myself, any of that kind of shit. I'm going to switch instead to welcoming whatever big emotion is coming up in me and working with it versus on it or against it, right? So this means I'm not going to try to suppress what I'm feeling, right? I'm not going to try to deny that I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm not going to judge myself for feeling this way. I'm not going to gaslight myself about it and, get into the I shouldn't be feeling this, or I shouldn't have this at this age, or why blah 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 blah. I'm not going to do any of that shit, because fundamentally none of that is going to fix the problem, right? So I'm going to slow down. I'm going to focus on connecting. I'm going to focus on regulating. I'm going to focus on attuning and being with and honoring and working with what's present emotionally inside of me. And I'm going to give myself as much room as I need to do that, right? So if that's all day, if that's all fucking week, honestly, to me, in my world, in my ethos, that's time well spent. Because I'm building stronger self-relationship. B, I'm learning as I support myself in this way. And C, a lot of times there's this weird, counterintuitive thing where when we slow down and we focus on connection over change or fixing something, that sense of feeling connected does a lot of the healing work. And it's actually ends up being a faster, smoother approach to getting back to balanced or even feeling really good emotionally than, doing any of the hypnosis tricks I know, or NLP tricks I know, or all the other stuff. So in a weird way, as much as it seems counterintuitive, dropping the desire to fix things and just being with and supporting myself and slowing down and making space for myself to feel what I'm feeling often helps me move through it faster in a really integrative, holistic, real way, right? Not in a mind manipulation kind of way, but in a really emotionally healing kind of way. So that's what I'm going to do generally as a start. If it's more based in emotions in terms of I'm feeling off. But what am I going to do if it's really extreme, if it's just too far gone? So let's talk about that for a moment and then we'll wrap the video. Okay, so if it's extreme, what I'm going to do is one of a few things here. And if I'm going to be honest here, the more intense and extreme the kind of off, bad, uncomfortable, dysregulated feeling we're having, I think that the options start to narrow a little bit in my experience, or at least to me, it seems like the options narrow. And I'm okay with that. But so this isn't going to be like a really big, complicated list, but there's just kind of a few things I'm going to do, right? So if things get extreme, especially emotionally, first thing I might do is I might turn to one of my self-regulation techniques. So while I was saying just a moment ago that sure, I know a lot of hypnosis and NLP, but I don't rush to those things to just force myself to change the moment I'm feeling emotionally off. If it's really extreme, if I'm super emotionally dysregulated beyond my capacity to really, do anything productive with it or, support myself through it, if it's beyond my capacity, which to be frank is less and less common these days. It's more common that I have more capacity to deal with it, but we all hit those moments where an emotion is bigger than our ability to meet it. In those moments, I might do a self-regulation technique to start, which I would consider more of a band-aid, but they're great in these kind of acute instances. So I might do some EFT tapping. I don't know if you guys have ever seen EFT tapping, but you kind of tap these points along your face and along your chest and arms while focusing on the issue. Works along a similar principle to EMDR and works really, really well sometimes in these acute instances to kind of soften the intensity of emotions. I might do some havening work, right? Which is kind of this soft, gentle stroking of the arms here. I might do some breathing techniques, right? There are different techniques you can do to kind of shift your nervous system out of this kind of acute, anxious fight or flight and down into a more balanced state of being. So if I'm getting really, really, really dysregulated, I might go to one of those first, right? I'm going to try to regulate myself through connecting and being with myself first. But if that's not going to cut it for whatever reason, I'm probably going to go to one of these, physical self-regulation techniques. What if those don't work though, right? What if, you've tried the breath technique and the EFT and the EMDR, bilateral stimulating, you've tried out all these techniques, nothing's still working, right? By the way, while I'm thinking about it, in terms of other techniques you can do, talk about a random switcheroo of conversation. In terms of things you can do that are techniques, I have a playlist on this channel, which is self-regulation techniques for clients. I recommend you look it up. There's a bunch of techniques you can go through if you're really in an acute, rough spot. Okay. So I would go to any of those. And bilateral music is another great one here. So bilateral music is music. It sounds very new agey. Typically, there's tons of it on YouTube here. And what you're going to do is put on headphones and it's going to do some sort of left-right stereo thing. If you listen to that for 20 minutes, a lot of times that'll take the energy out of things. It works along the same principle as EMDR, same thing as moving your eyes back and forth, which is essentially stimulating your brain to soften anxiety and fear states when we get kind of stuck there. So those are the tools I would go to. Again, there is a playlist on my, if you go to my playlist section called Self-Regulation for Clients, look it up. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Strongly recommend you use them if you need them. That's why they're there. If none of that is working for whatever reason, I might go to a supplement at this point to kind of calm my system down if I'm really emotionally dysregulated. So for me, generally, if I'm dysregulated, I tend to swing. Sometimes I used to go more dissociated. Sometimes now I go more to fight or flight, kind of sympathetic activation. Generally, I'm going to take some sort of an anxiolytic herb or supplement. So something that works on the GABA system. So I might take GABA, I might take L-theanine. I don't think ashwagandha works on the GABA system, but I might take ashwagandha. I might take, passion flower or lemon balm or lavender oil or there's a long list of things that work on the GABA system. Obviously, before you take any supplements, make sure that it's not going to conflict with anything else you're taking and not dangerous for you to take it. But I've kind of figured out, what works for my body and generally what's safe with other things I take. So I might take something like that. And essentially, if we're being honest here, that works along the same principle as a benzodiazepine, right? So this is basically the herbal equivalent of a benzo. And if I'm really in a bad way and I'm really overwhelmed, that might be where I go with it. Although that's pretty rare these days. There's definitely a period of my life where I tried to supplement my way through trauma responses, and it helped. I'll be honest, it definitely helped me kind of as a crutch, as a way of getting through, but ultimately, of course, didn't heal what really needed healing. It was just a patch to help me cope, essentially. So, so I would look at anxiolytics and, if there's something I need there. If you're someone who feels comfortable taking a benzo and has them around, I'm not a big fan of benzos as chronic daily use. I think they're incredibly dangerous. I've seen some really tough cases of people, including family members who have been addicted to benzos, and that can be life rocking, let's say, for lack of a better term. But as a kind of one-off, every now and then kind of thing, I do think they can have their place. And so if you really need one, or half of one or a little bit of one, just as much as you need to take the edge off and calm things, do that. Again, this is just my mindset, my ethos. If you don't agree, or if that's bad advice for you in particular, fair play. This may not be for everyone. Other things I might do if things get really bad. I might walk. So a lot of times how I supported myself through, really tough periods of my life, going way, way back, the more I think about it, is essentially walking and processing my emotions at the same time. So why walk and process? Well, I love walking and I love being outside, and it's definitely emotionally regulating for me to be around trees and plants and, nature and sunlight and fresh air and all that. So it always feels good to me. Secondly, when we're walking, we're actually doing a form of bilateral stimulation. So that same thing I just mentioned about bilateral music and EMDR, walking does the same thing. Basically, anything that's left, right, that crosses the midline of the body here, stimulates both sides of the brain, will start to undo anxiety and fear and stress if you do it long enough, right? So walking is bilateral stimulation. And so I will walk to bilaterally stimulate my brain, and then I'll, think through, process, do what I need to do to address what's present emotionally for me. If all else fails, what I'll do is I'll try to rest. I'll take a nap. I'll try to just unwind, let it go, sleep, and usually that'll reset things if nothing else does. So so those are all the things I do in the more acute situations. So that's pretty much it in terms of content. Let's just wrap the video. We'll call it done. So those are generally the things I personally am going to do anytime I'm feeling like shit. So hopefully something here might be useful for you, whether it's a mindset or an idea of an intervention you hadn't thought of before in terms of a supplement, or like the, acupuncture, acupressure. Hopefully something here is useful for you. Again, I totally understand this is personal to me. This is subjective. Not everyone's going to resonate with these solutions. These are just the things that I found work for me. And they work pretty dang good. I've gotten really great results in terms of self-care and self-maintenance out of them. And I guess what else I want to say about this before we wrap here is, not only am I feeling a bit out of sorts today physically in terms of probably my health is a bit off, but I have a lot of clients right now and people I know right now who are out of sorts emotionally. And there seems to be kind of something in the zeitgeist, if you will, something in the stars that seems to be really triggering people to really feel extra dysregulated right now. So if you're one of those people, I would just say hang in there, do what you can. Please check out that list that I mentioned in terms of, in my channel, the playlist, there's, this these self-regulation techniques. Try them out. Support yourself through this tough moment. And, let me know what you think. Does this resonate? Is this useless? Was this a waste of time? Do you want to know more about these kinds of other, slightly divergent topics, but kind of related? And, how are you doing? Maybe share that in the comments as well. Anyways, I'm going to go take care of my health more. And I hope you guys, get some value out of this. And I'll see you soon. We got plenty to talk about in terms of psychedelics in the near future. So if you've been waiting for more videos on psychedelics, I'm excited to deliver those to you. So much love to you all. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.